Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I want to show you a trick for joining the ends of a half Persian 3-in-1 chainmail weave. Now, if you're interested in learning how to weave this, I do have a couple of other tutorials. They should be linked down below, or you can just check out my chainmail playlist. Today we're working with anodized aluminum in 2 colors, as well as EPDM rubber rings. Now, you can do this even without the rubber rings, but like for the rubber you would have just used, metal, but it was a little faster to weave it for me today, and I wanted one of these for in my booth. So what we're gonna do is we have it woven, and you can see this is how one end is looking. Now, this tutorial is not intended for beginners. It's intended for people who, I have quite a few friends and patrons here on YouTube who have gotten this far. They just need to know how to make the ends go together. So this is what our 2 ends are looking like. We have one that doesn't have any loose rings on it, and then we have the one that we've finished on that has that single ring kind of dangling loose. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna stack that ring in line with the rest of it as if we were going to be weaving, continuing the weave. And I have a 20 gauge wire here, and I'm just going to thread through in the same direction about five or six rings. And you can see that's holding everything. We can do more than that, really. Depending on the length of the scrap wire that you're using, you could just thread the whole length of the bracelet. But I'm just going to do a couple. But see how it's holding all of, and I've only threaded through the rubber rings, but how it's holding on to everything. I'm going to come in, this end's kind of gnarly, so I'm just going to trim that off. Come in from the other end, making sure that there aren't any twists or anything, and start threading this the same way. And you can double check and see and make sure that it is actually the same way, because then whenever you bring these ends around, all of your wires should be, or all of your rings rather, should be laying in the same direction. The more you do this, the more practice you'll get, the better you'll get at pattern recognition. And you'll be able to kind of see, if a ring is laying. Let me actually show you if we threaded through in the wrong direction. Well, first off, you're just going to have a heck of a time with it. But even if you get the first ring wrong, which is the easiest one to get wrong, now there are tutorials on how to weave on the wire. That drives me bonkers. I have a really hard time with it. If that method works for you, go ahead and do that all the way up to this point. But I prefer to weave off the wire and then sometimes bring it on the wire. So you can see here how it's not laying in line with itself. So if that happens, we'll just go ahead and pull it off. And then come back through. Now it's just being weird. There we are. Sometimes you just have to poke it till it falls into place. And again, threading through about 5 or 6 or 7 rings. And bringing these ends together. And you can almost see how this ring just falls in line. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take the next ring in our color pattern, and I'm going to hook through right there. So if the wire were not there, we'd be holding it, and we would be hooking through these 2 like that. But with the wire there, I'm going to go ahead and hook through. Oh, all my rings fell off. Hook through on the bottom side of the wire. So it can be complicated, but don't give up. You've got this. You're so close to getting it. If you've already gotten this far, you are so close to getting it. So let's just hook on a couple of rings. Nothing like doing the same work you've already done. Okay. So we're hooking through these two. This is it from a different perspective, kind of viewing from the top. And then I'm going to hook through our black rubber ring just there on the bottom. Do you see kind of how that has happened? I'm afraid now with the poor lighting, it's winter, so it's like 5 and the sun's already set. We're going to close it, but I'm going to keep holding on to that ring. I'm afraid this wasn't a good color choice, but I've hooked through 1, 2, and then just added that ring onto there. That's another thing I like about the rubber rings, is it lets you stretch. Whereas if this were, you know, a smaller ring gauge and just solid metal, it can get really complicated with how tight it can be. So now you can see, and what's nice about the wire at this point is you can let go of it and not everything just falls to pieces. So this is the blue ring that we just added. We threaded through that black ring, and that black ring. From the back side, you can see it's following that same pattern, just laying around. And now our next ring to join is this purple one. So I'm going to twist it around until we find the opening. Then I'm going to open it. And you don't want it laying underneath, you want it laying on top of the blue ring that we had just added. So from a different perspective, we don't want it on this side, we want it on this side. And then, whoop, sometimes that happens. Your pliers will just slip right off. It's okay. It's part of what makes you a chainmailer. And so I'm just going to kind of push in and slide this rubber ring over our metal one. So to repeat that motion, we've hooked through, bringing it on top of our blue ring, well, which would have been our last ring. This is actually, the one we're holding right now was the first ring we had woven with. And so I'm just going to push right over. And then we would close it. And so from there, we can remove our wire. And we have a seamless join. And y'all, I'm not even kidding that is so much easier said than done. I have spent weeks of my life, whenever I was first learning to weave chainmail, on this project, like on this weave, joining the ends. But I really, really wanted to set cabochons in chainmail, and this was the only way that I had discovered on mailartisans.org of how to do that. So I do hope that this helps you. If you're still having trouble, check out, there's a lot of other really talented YouTubers and, you know, people who have written tutorials and things for free here on the internet. And you can go and just try everything until you get it, because it really is very rewarding once you do. So if you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. And I do want to show you guys just an option for if you're like, this isn't happening, I am unable to do this. You can still, you know, maybe not for joining, you know, for around a cabochon, but you can totally I'm just undoing our work here. Just put a clasp on it. You know, even if you used rubber rings, go ahead and, you know, attach a metal clasp. And so the way that I do that on this weave is on the end where we have a dangly bit. I'm actually going to add one more ring to make it a little longer. Well, that's not the end with the dangly bit. Which one's the end with the... Oh, neither of them are the ends with the dangly bit anymore, because the way I took it apart. Never mind. So no dangly bit added, but I would come through. And y'all, I'm a professional, and I'm still like, what is happening here? So please, please do not be hard on yourself. Okay, so I have grabbed, the ring size I'm using here is 16 gauge 5/16. and that's a standard wire gauge. So what I have here are two little 18 gauge 3/16 rings. So I'm just going to open one up, and I'm going to hook it through both of our rings here on the end. And then I'm going to close it, and I'm going to hook another metal ring, nice and big, and close it. And now on the other end, I'm going to use, this is a 7x13mm lobster claw clasp. I like these because they're very secure, but they can be a little, finicky to get on sometimes. I usually get help from Randy, but you could use a magnetic clasp. You could make your own hook and eye, just whatever you like. But I like these ones because they fit onto the 18 gauge 3/16 really nicely. I'm just going to hook that clasp on there, and then hook it onto our bracelet. And so now that is a way that you can go through, and I just open it with my thumb, hook that on. That's a different way that you can close your half Persian 3-in-1. So if you can weave it all day long, but you're still just not getting the hang of joining it, don't feel like you have wasted a project, because you can still turn it into a very nice bracelet. So again, I really do hope that that helps you guys out, and I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. If you're interested in checking out my craft along with Vaughn kits, there's links to my Etsy store down below, as well as links to my Patreon, where you can participate in my monthly craft crates, my digital download content, all sorts of stuff. But thank you again, though, and until next time. Sorry, my end of video commercial is getting all jumbled. Until next time, you guys, happy crafting. Bye.